just think is the biggest issue facing the United States today? Just off the top of your head, what do you think is one of the biggest things?
Honestly, I think mental health is a big one. Mental health in relation to institutionalized issues, is that the right word?
Like cultural injustice.
I think it's a lack of empathy and tolerance.
I think we've lost kind of a lot of community or sense of community.
The biggest problems I see, because I am Gen Z in this country, a housing crisis, a lack of affordability for everyday products such as food and groceries. Those are some of the biggest problems that I personally see.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing the United States today? Just off the top of your head, what do you think is one of the biggest things?
Honestly, I think mental health is a big one. Mental health in relation to institutionalized issues, is that the right word?
Like cultural injustice. I think there's just a lot of miscommunication between the government and our generation specifically. I feel like they just don't feel represented enough. Okay, an example I can think of is in one of my psych classes. A big part of how we learn and interpret information comes from our cultural backgrounds, and I just feel like across America there's so many different cultural backgrounds. People call America the mixing pot or the melting pot, so I just feel like a lot of people feel underrepresented in the government because they don't feel like their cultural background is represented.
I think it's a lack of empathy and tolerance and not understanding people's points of views and other people's struggles.
I don't mean to laugh. The biggest problems I see, because I am Gen Z in this country, a housing crisis, a lack of affordability for everyday products such as food and groceries. Those are some of the biggest problems that I personally see. And I do understand a lack of empathy. It is a problem, I guess. But when you try to talk about the biggest problems facing the country, and a lack of empathy comes up, but affordable homes don't, then that kind of says a lot about where your mind is. I'm not gonna say too much because
Well, with the tolerance and inclusivity issue, talk to me a little bit more about that. Why do you think that's such a big issue? Give me some examples of what's been happening.
Everyone's always discriminated based off of their race, classism, many things, and then we don't discuss it enough. And then if it is discussed, it's only slightly partly in the news, and then it goes away. A lot of issues right now is environmentalism and how we're not going to be able to go back to what we had before because of pollution, and not enough is being done. But again, it's always individualized. It's always the regular people have to be recycling, they have to be doing all this, and then we're not focusing on corporations and how they are polluting and stuff like that.
How many years do you think the world has left if we don't get climate change under control?
I think it said 7 or 6 years left.
6 years.
Something around
6
that. I'm not
years?
positive, don't quote me on that, but I think it's around that, yeah.
Do you think it's 6 years? Do you think that's kind of...
we have 6 years. Okay. Look, I didn't research this topic, but hypothetically speaking, if we only had 6 years left on this earth before everything's just destroyed, I think, just my personal opinion, that the world's government systems, the different governments in the world, would definitely be applying a much more targeted efforts to fixing these issues. So because they aren't, I don't think it's 6 years left. I don't even think that's a realistic take. But her saying that does definitely make me want to look into it, that we only have 6 years left. That doesn't sound real to me. Hey y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe.
extreme, or do you think that we're really on that track right
I
now?
think we're really on that track. I think
6 years and we're done.
Yeah, I don't think there's much left.
I think we've
What?
lost kind of a lot of community or sense of community. I think social media is an issue, kind of, and it's, I don't know. I feel like I can't really speak on the biggest issue in America because there are a lot of really big issues. I don't think social media can be said to be the biggest issue.
It seems very polarized and everything seems politicized. And then there's the whole cancel culture thing. So it's hard to be able to learn from this fast-paced quote unquote wokeness that Gen Z is trying to like add into society, I guess.
You know what? So, cancel culture has been an issue that has come up a lot from Gen Z. I've noticed this lately because I go to college campuses all over the nation. Are you guys concerned with where cancel culture is right now? Do you think it's an issue?
I mean, I think it can be kind of an issue because I think everyone can be very quick to cancel before they know all of the facts and then can kind of revoke it. But then I think it also can be a good thing in that we're not just like letting everything slide. So,
What?
Give me an example of when cancel culture has been a good thing.
Just like calling people out if they say something that's racist or like a microaggression or something.
I'm a little bit older. I don't mean to cut you off. What is a microaggression?
Just like little, usually racist comments on like, they happen like every day. Like usually they go unnoticed. Like, I don't know, a go-to for me is like, oh, you're smart because you're Asian. Like, you're not.
Nobody has told you that you're smart because you're Asian. Nobody has said that to you. Nobody has said that to you. And the reason I'm pausing this is because when I kind of get a little confused when I hear the term microaggression too. And obviously, I'm Gen Z. Obviously, I know what a microaggression is. But the reason I pause is because using that to justify cancel culture is an extremely dangerous thing. And microaggression to me, it just ties under just racism. When I hear microaggression, I don't think of anything as like something spectacular. But of course, racism is something that must be stopped. But justifying cancel culture is it just doesn't seem right to me, bro. Of course, when it comes to racism, we have freedom of speech. We have to be able to call it out when we see fit and be like, okay, that's racist. Don't say that to me, or don't say that to them. I think that's fine. But when you start bringing in terms such as microaggression or like subconscious racism, that's when things get a little blurry. Cause like, how could you even prove that? Like, what is that? Because I don't think anyone has told you that you're smart because you're Asian. I don't think anyone has told you that. I think you just made that up. And I'm not going to lie. I think she just made that up. Because nobody walks up to you and say, oh, you're only athletic because you're black. Or you're only smart because you're Asian. That's not a microaggression. That's just racism. That's not even a microaggression. That's literally just pure racism. So I think she just made that term. I'm not trying to go against their intelligence or bash them, but
You're Asian, you're smart because you're smart, and your race has nothing to do with how intelligent you are.
When you hear people tell you like, oh, you're smart because you're Asian, how does that make you feel?
When I
Nobody
was
told you
younger, well, I'm half Japanese, half white. So when I was younger, I didn't feel Japanese, even though I look more Japanese. So people would tell me that, and I'm like, joke's on you, I'm white. But then it wasn't until later that I realized I was thinking that way because of the way I was being taught in school was like, white is good, like Asian American history doesn't exist. And I didn't know that until I got here, like that it's a whole field of study. And so like now when I hear that, I tell people like, you can't say that, and then explain why. And I think it's the explanation that really helps people, because then they're like, oh, I understand now. Like I even had to explain it to my mom because the whole model minority myth, and she didn't realize it was a myth because that's just how they grew up and that's just what the culture was, I guess. And then I explained it to her like, oh, that's a whole myth that the dominant culture made up and stuff. And
what is model minority? Sorry, I'm
Oh,
kind of
no,
new to
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of this terminology, so talk to me about that too.
it's the idea that Asian Americans are the top minority, and if there's like a little pyramid, they're like the ideal minority. They can get all the jobs and they get to college and they're smart and stuff, but it's not true because Asian American is a giant umbrella term, and there's a bunch of different ethnicities and a bunch of different socioeconomic classes and everything.
And I want to ask you,
okay. It's enough with the technicalities. What I'm assuming is that she's majoring, because what she's talking about, she sounds like she's majoring in Asian American studies or Asian studies or American studies. I don't know. But she's majoring in some type of historical study from what I'm getting from this conversation, from what I'm getting from what she's saying. So when she's saying that, when she brought up model minority and the term Asian Americans they get all the jobs and all that, that is a stereotype. That is a stereotype. My thing is this though. When you're trying to look at how specific minority groups do in terms of financial affluence, then there is an argument that something within the Asian American culture is better when it comes to financial influence or when it comes to economic growth. And I'm not saying this because of the stereotype that all Asian people are smart. That's a pure stereotype. What I'm saying is that's based off of what households are making the most, financially. I mean, what households are making the most financially. That's where I'm basing this off of. So when you come to the model minority, I've never heard that phrase before, but what I'm getting from this is like, it's I guess what minority groups do better economically, and there is a ranking of what minority groups do better economically. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, there is a literal ranking for it. So, and Asian people, I guess, are higher on the ranking. Like, that's not really, I don't think that's a controversial take. That's just what it is. It's a literal economic ranking, and they're higher. I don't know if that makes them a model minority. It's just what it is, I guess. I don't know.
Because we have been talking a lot, specifically on college campuses, about the concept of white privilege. I mean, is that something that's talked about on campus? What do you know about that? I mean, how do you feel about that concept in the modern day?
I mean, obviously it is talked about, or I don't know, white privilege. I mean, I do believe it exists. I've experienced it as being super white, but
how so? Give me some examples. What are you experiencing?
Okay, I guess this wasn't on a college campus, but the most white privilege thing I've ever experienced is I was going to a play in San Francisco, and there was a black couple in front of me that like they were getting their bags checked, normal, like whatever, and like the security guard checked their bags. Me and my mom walked up, and he was like, "Oh no, you guys are fine. You guys don't need your bags checked." Something like that. That I was like, "Oh, okay, weird." Yeah.
So you think it was a discrimination type thing? Like,
yeah, or I don't know, or like why would he let us go but not them?
So I've been watching the news lately, and I've noticed that
off the top of that position, off the top of the dome, that does sound like racism. My thing, when it comes to isolated situations like that, it's kind of hard to justify the entirety of white privilege within the entire country based off a situation like that. But to me, that sounds like racism. I would say you kind of have to look at the bigger picture. Why did he check their bags? What happened in that situation? We don't know. But when you're trying to justify the entirety of white privilege based off of that one isolated situation, it just gets kind of dangerous. That's all I'm trying to say. It just gets kind of dangerous to do something like that.
Like the potential World War III or nuclear war with Russia has been a big issue. Do you know anything about that? What are your thoughts?
I'm not well versed in that, so I don't have much thoughts, no. But to be totally honest with you, I don't feel like I have the education on it to be able to really speak to it.
I think I've heard a lot of stuff on things like TikTok and social media, so a lot of times I don't necessarily know if I'm getting accurate information or not. I wish that there was a lot more accurate information being given out, because I think a lot of the times you get, I don't know, I think they try to minimize the extent to which the problems that are going on, if that makes sense.
Did she just admit to getting all her information from TikTok and social media? Okay. Anyways, if you have any more suggestions for me, comment down below. It's Jojo, and I'll see you next one.